All right, we're live. We got Chris Costantini. He's the founder of Adelphi Insurance, and he's also Chris the Insurance Guy. You might have seen him on YouTube. We're pumped to have him on board. He's done a lot of cool things in the space, and I think he has a lot to share. So, Chris, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks so much, Connor. It was great to meet you at the conference, and dude, I'm glad it worked out. I know that there was the first interaction. It was just off the straight while you were presenting and stuff, and I just asked the question, and now we're here. So very very happy that that worked out.
I guess start at the beginning. You're a young insurance guy, which is kind of an
Yeah,
oxymoron in itself, right?
right.
So, before you get into how you got into insurance, where did you grow up? What was your background? Did you play sports? Like, who are
Yeah,
you? You know?
no, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I was born and raised here in Torrance, where my office is. Grew up a pretty chill middle class, family. Grew up playing a lot of sports. Anything with a ball that involved a ball, I was usually like fairly good at. So really kind of honed in on like soccer growing up. I was a big soccer player, played at a fairly high level throughout the years in high school, and then didn't get the real like looks I was looking for in college. I didn't end up going playing in college, just played like club and whatnot. But yeah, man, just a pretty chill, like, regular middle class kid. Was a bit of a troublemaker kind of growing up. Got in trouble a couple times. Actually got like kicked out of middle school and
Oh
seventh
shit.
grade. Crazy stuff. I was just being a little, hoodlum kid. It's funny. I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs have a similar story where they were just like rebellious, kind of went against the grain, weren't
hmm
really trying to follow the rules. So I think that showed for me in the early years, especially like middle school. That happened. High school, I was still in that kind of rebellious stage, but I was still good at soccer. So I always had this kind of like vision of I'm gonna, succeed and get, ahead with soccer more than anything. And it didn't work out. So I kind of banked on my grades, which I had fairly decent grades, and got into a decent university, went to school, got a good degree. The whole time while I was in college, really kind of learned the ropes of insurance. I worked as a, farmer's customer service representative when I was like 18. Called up my buddy one summer. I was just asking him like, "Hey man, like what are you going to do for work this summer?" And he was like, "Oh, you speak Spanish, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I speak Spanish." And this is freshman year. I was sitting in the dorm, like calling this guy, and he said, "Yeah, you speak Spanish." "Oh, yeah, I speak Spanish." He said, "Call my dad. He's looking for someone for his farmers agency that speaks Spanish.
Damn.
Reach out to him. Remind him of when we were kids, like playing around at the house." And so I was like, "Yeah, yeah, for sure." So I called his dad. Dad gave me an interview. So he luckily took a chance on like some hoodlum 18-year-old kid in college. Gave me my first kind of real professional experience, professional environment, and started at Farmer. So I did that throughout 4 years of college.
And you were just
And
customer service at Farmers for the most part, or did you
yeah,
get into sales at any point?
so I was doing sales too. Yeah, the first year, I think that they really kind of just had me doing like the farmers friendly reviews and like just calling customers and all these, service things. And then I was doing some of the marketing stuff because I was always kind of my focus was like tech. How
hmm
can we use technology? I knew technology and I knew that the internet and a lot of things were going to have a big impact on business in general. So I always kind of implemented little things for them, Yelp reviews and just like small things. They're just like, let's get more reviews and let's get more brand awareness. But working, this is also an older guy, like a farmer's agent's been in the business forever. He's kind of just he's on the way out of the business, kind of checked out.
hmm
So I had a lot of ideas and I just kind of had a lot of ambition and things that I wanted to implement myself that I didn't feel, I was getting, I could implement. So that's kind of when the wheels started turning. I was thinking, how can I do this for myself and how can I do it better? And then plus I started calculating the commissions and I was like, okay, I think I could do well
Yeah,
in this business.
that I
Um,
feel like that does it when you start doing the math and you're like, wait a second,
yeah.
I can get this in my pocket instead.
Yeah.
What year was this? When did you graduate college?
So I graduated college 2018.
All right, so like social media was still it was ripping. Like you were trying to implement these things that were obvious. It's not like when I graduated in 2013 where Instagram had just come out, so all that
Yeah.
stuff was fresh.
No, for
That was
sure.
obvious to you. And then
Different landscape for sure.
yeah, so when you graduate college 2018, did you start your agency right away, or did you get another job between, or what happened there?
I started day one. So yeah, like about a month before I graduated is when I made the phone call to my farmer's agent, basically letting him know. I said, hey, I wanna pursue my own agency. And he kind of like, laughed at it a little bit and it didn't really go super well.
Oh
actually,
shit.
and he wasn't super happy about it because the whole they were like kind of grooming me to eventually take over that agency and kind of run the
Uh,
agency as a manager.
mhm.
So, and they were really waiting for me to graduate so I could be full time and be there all the time. And that's when I said, hey, I'm there's two routes I can take here. I said if I'm ever gonna mess this up, I'm gonna do it while I'm young. I was
Mhm.
21. I think I maybe had just turned 22, and I started. So I launched the agency like officially on social media, Facebook, and I posted it with like all my parents, friends, and everybody's looking at it on Facebook saying like, "Oh, this kid's starting an insurance agency." So I got a little. That's about a month out from graduating.
Nice. And did you get business right off the bat from friends and family?
Good question.
Yeah.
There was a few people that were like, just the real ones, the real OGs. They
Yep.
gave me a shot, but they didn't. Not too many, to be
Hmm.
honest. Not
Yeah.
really. Like,
Which I guess at the end of the day might be good because then you don't have these weird conversations as a young guy making mistakes with people that are close to you. And maybe that's a blessing and a curse at the same time.
it's true. I always tell people like I'm down to insure people that are my like acquaintance of a friend. Like
Ah,
acquaintances of friends or friends of
yeah,
friends. I'm happy to do it, but I try to stay away from like close friends and family. Like those are the ones. Insurance is the type of business things go wrong and people aren't super happy about most of the time.
true.
So yeah, it's not good to mix those up.
Yeah, I have my personal insurance through one of my best friends from college. I play lacrosse with him or whatever,
Oh, nice.
and like I didn't know any better, and nothing's happened so far. But I feel it because even like small claims or anything like that, I almost feel bad hitting him up, and I'm like, hey, like someone hit me in my car. I don't know if you're gonna be upset with me, like,
Right, right, right.
yeah,
Or your bill just went up and you're like, dude, do I really need to call my lacrosse buddy on this?
right,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
then this is kind of where it transitions because you have your agency that you run to this day, but then
Yeah.
somewhere along the line, you started being Chris the insurance guy, the YouTube personality, and helping agencies out. When did that start? Was it right after college like this, or was it a couple years in?
So it was probably like 3 to 6 months into launching the agency
Hmm.
after I started it. So I was sitting in this little like 300 square foot tiny little office within a real estate office. They leased me like a small little office, and I just sat there and I was just I came from an agency that the phones were ringing, it was buzzing, like there was activity, and I was
Hmm.
thinking like, okay, I'm going to start this agency. The phones are going to be ringing. I'm going to be like making all these sales. I sat there for like 2 months and was just like, where's the where are the calls? So I was sitting there thinking like this is not as easy as I thought, and I started thinking, okay, I got to start getting my face out there. People, another big thing that inspired me was Gary V. Um,
Yeah,
Big
huge
fan of
Gary
Gary
Vee
V.
fan.
Yeah, yeah. Especially back then, I think he was like really kind of starting to pop off, and that was like a big. He just basically said, "Get yourself on video. People need to know who you are. Attention is the asset."
Hmm.
And so that's kind of where my main focus started going. I was like, okay, I got to start. I got to. People need to see me. People need to know who I am. So all I really knew at that point was like how to actually set up the agency. That's all. Everything else, even like coverages at the time, dude, I'm telling you honestly, like I didn't know policies very well. Like people would call me about policies coverages and I'd be like stumbling about like coverages, not knowing how to explain it super well. And so all I really actually knew very well was how to start an insurance agency because I went through all the hoops. It was a terrible process. And I was like, there's nothing online, nothing exists about this. So I just started making videos of how I did that. And then that didn't get any traction for months. And then eventually one day it just started to randomly kind of take off some of these videos. So
So
that's kind of
you were just answering questions on licensing or like getting things set up or how to get appointments because you went straight
yeah,
from captive to independent, right? So did you have to get appointments with different carriers and whatnot?
exactly. Yeah, that's the biggest challenge. So I joined an alliance, which alliances really help you get your foot in the door with the carriers if you have
Hmm.
no experience. That's like the paradox where like which one comes first, the chicken or the egg? Because you can't get appointments without having a track record, a history of like a book, and you can't
Hmm.
get a book without the appointment. So it's like which one? How
Right.
do you do it? So then the alliance was the kind of foot in the door for me, and that yeah, that was I started laying out some of those processes like from the beginning, from like how to set up an entity to get the licenses and the errors and omissions and all the other things that you need
Right.
structurally to run the agency.
That's cool. And I feel like insurance is one of those businesses that I mean, you did it. You were just a young kid by yourself, started one. And I feel like there's not a lot of businesses where you can just be by yourself hustling, calling people, using your network, and actually making a living. So when you have someone like you who's documenting it all and putting it out there, there's got to be, 1,000 other people like you in that moment trying to do the exact same thing.
For sure. Yeah. No, I've seen it firsthand now. Like I get messages every day almost. People saying like, "Oh, thank you for the video." I'm like 21 years old, and I put myself back in their shoes, and I'm like, "Ah, man, it's a great. I think it's a great thing to do, especially if you have the itch. Like you should totally do it, and it's not easy. That's what I will say. I was
Yeah.
looking back. It's like, dude, it's a massive uphill battle, but it's worth
Yeah.
it. It's worth it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, any business is an undertaking, but it must be pretty satisfying when someone that you used to be pretty much hits you up and is like, "Hey, man, like this helped me so much. Thank you." Right? Like
Yeah.
that. Even if that happened one time, it probably makes the whole journey worth it.
It's funny. I tell my friends and like people around me, like sometimes I do these like consulting calls to help people get their agency started.
Hmm.
It doesn't make me a lot of money, and it probably takes me away from doing things that would make me more money. And I'll say it straight up, Connor, like no joke. I finish these calls and I feel so much happier than like if I
Awesome.
had just sold like $100,000 insurance policy that makes me like 10 grand.
Right.
I swear, like they make me genuinely more happy and fulfilled. So yeah, for sure, you're definitely. I think that's yeah. If you can do something that you like and you can help people and make money at the same time, it's a good spot to be
Pretty
in.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah. So then the YouTube channel, when I'm just kind of piecing things together here from what I'm picking up, the
yeah,
YouTube channel kind of led to you starting your consulting company because you probably got hit up enough where you're like, shit, I can probably charge for this.
yeah.
Or was it always something in your mind you wanted to do business coaching, or was it just a byproduct of you putting up content?
Absolutely not. Yeah, that's a good question, dude. I never ever thought I was going to be a consultant or do anything for like coaching agents. The whole thing was just like, let's just get more insurance policies sold, and then I made the videos that happened. The only thing I knew turned into a niche where I could help more people and make money on that too. And honestly, the consulting is such a small portion of my income anyway. It's like not really anything
Hmm.
substantial, but it's still there. Yeah, I mean, it was completely stumbled upon. Like it was not something I tried to do by any means at all. Yeah,
That's cool. I mean,
for
it's your passion part of it, right? Like, I enjoy it too. Where I have buddies that hit me up, and I'm working with one of my friends now he's an ex basketball player, pro basketball player,
oh, nice.
and now he's doing essentially like he reconstructed his body through like stretching and rolling and just figuring out all this stuff. And now he's coaching other basketball players who are going through the same stuff. But he played basketball his whole life till he was 30. And then he retired and he's like, I don't know how to do business, but I want to do it. And so you and I just inherently know things like systems and processes, softwares to use. And
Right.
just being able to show someone that and seeing it in their eyes, being like, oh my God,
So you're
this,
helping him with his business stuff
yeah, yeah. And I mean, like, just as a friend, right? And
for sure.
but it feels so good because you just know how much time you spent, you wasted, how much stress it brought you, and you're like, I can save someone that, especially someone I care about, and
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. So I feel you on that.
I encourage people all the time. I'm like, dude, spend a couple $100 to get the right people in place, the right mentors,
Hmm.
the advice, just to even be around to have the conversations with these people that can expedite your process. Like I
Yeah,
had nobody starting. I'm sure I don't know how it was for you, but starting up, it's not easy when you have zero guidance and zero resources. Take advantage of it. If it costs you money, it's the best investment you'll ever make, in my opinion. Um,
yeah, I'm totally with you. I kind of had the opposite of, thing happen to me,
oh, really?
where I worked for a company that was run so poorly, I almost saw how to not do everything wrong. Right, where like that was the thing when I left there and started my own thing, I knew,
Yeah.
okay, let's not do any of this shit. We can do it
Like
differently.
what? Like what was like a major thing that you saw that maybe?
Just just like not understanding how to outsource properly, not understanding how like why you're pricing something the way you are. I think in
Right.
insurance you don't have that much control over how you price
Right.
policies, but we have full control over how we price everything we do. So
Right.
we at the other company, we just weren't pricing anything based on any sort of metric, any sort of scalability. And then eventually the work would load up and you'd be like, how do we get this to someone else and still actually afford to do anything, right? And that's why it
Wow.
inevitably folded. So I saw it from the other perspective, and then obviously we made our mistakes along the way, but we got lucky a bunch with how to do what we
For
did.
sure. I mean, yeah, looking at other people's mistakes too, that's just as valuable.
Mm-hmm.
seeing what not to do. For example, the agency I worked for was just so outdated. They weren't using any any of the platforms or softwares or tools that, especially nowadays, man, with like AI and automations, there's still so many people missing the boat completely. Like I keep shoving it down everyone's throat. Like, guys, there's so much stuff that if you don't implement this in the next like 2 to 3 years, good luck. Especially in insurance. Insurance is like one of the old school kind of businesses.
Big
But
time.
that's where I think you're doing a great job, man. Like what you're doing is a fantastic service. It doesn't exist. It's not There's not enough of it for sure. So
Appreciate that. Yeah,
yeah,
that's cool. I literally was just using ChatGPT to run like business models, and I had four. I was like, run these four different pricing models over the course of 3 years for if we
right.
price things this way, and it literally would spit out all this math that would take me hours to do, and then it showed me, here's like year one profit, year two profit, year three,
Yeah,
and it's something that's not even industry specific. Any business can do that type of stuff, but
for sure.
it legitimately is just doing math for you at this like the most basic level, all the way through having a software that like Gale or something that talks to people on the phone and saves your customer service time.
Yeah,
So I want to ask a couple more questions on the YouTube channel and
yeah,
then get into what you think agents should be doing. But
sure.
I'm looking at your most popular videos. You got some videos of like 50,000 views, 30,000 views, like serious numbers, which is pretty awesome. Um, do you notice the videos that get the most views, the most people hit you up? Or do you get videos where you post and there's like 700 people watching it and you still get really good traction from it?
That's a great question. As far as the actual reaching out and messages that I'm receiving, I want to say the largest top of the funnel is the big videos, like the
Mm-hmm.
ones that are like the big topics, how to start an insurance agency, tips to pass your license. Like these are the ones that are kind of the ones like the top of the funnel. But I think the more detailed and the real followers that ask a lot of questions are the ones that are digging a little deeper and they're probably going down the rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and those ones are usually the ones I prefer to talk to as well because they're they're probably somewhere along the stage of starting their agency already. They're going to do it. They've already sailed the ship. They're going to do it, and they're
Mm-hmm.
asking like more high level questions that I actually enjoy talking about because it's also makes me think about stuff versus like, oh, what do I need to do to structure the agency, like how do I set. I'm just like, I'm so far beyond that part of my like process of my own agency that
Right.
those are. But yeah, most of them I would say it's a mixed bag of but I do appreciate the more in detail, in depth questions that I'm getting. So
Yeah, it probably shows that they did their homework a little bit, right? Either on your
yeah,
videos or someone else's. So when they ask you this question, you can only, in theory, ask that question if you did a little bit of digging to understand concepts related to it.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I can tell pretty quickly, especially even on these one-on-one calls and coaching calls that I do. I get really nervous, especially with some of the people that have zero experience and they're
Mm,
already in the process of starting their agency. I always tell them, I'm like, dude, you gotta go work for someone. You got like even with you with working for the firm,
mhm.
understanding what didn't work, like that probably just set you up to be able to do your own thing and do it well. But if you have no experience and no background and no even just fundamental knowledge of how this industry works,
Mhm.
it makes me very nervous
Yeah,
for those
I'm
people.
with you.
Yeah,
I mean, you look like when you start a business, you're just so optimistic, and you have to be. You have
right.
to just assume everything's going to work and you're going to be fine and like
That's
there's
true.
no problems. But at the end of the day, when you've kind of done it and then you see someone who is that without a lot of the knowledge, you're like, oh shit, I know exactly what might happen, right? Like obviously if they have the ability to get like thrown on the ground a bunch of times and get back up, they'll be fine. But you can tell at some level.
Yeah, and then it just comes down to efficiency. Like, are you willing to take 2 to 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, even a year, possibly, to make a bunch of mistakes that you could have probably learned in a couple months working for someone?
Right.
It just comes down to like patience and efficiency, strategic decisions. So yeah, it's
I'm with
tricky.
you. All right, so let's get into some advice from Chris right now because
Sure,
you have all these YouTube videos. So I assume that anyone who wants to really know what you're thinking should go to your YouTube channel and just
for
check it
sure.
out. The We'll plug it at the end too, but it's Chris the insurance guy, and he has a shit ton of videos on here. Um, but if you're thinking not even for a startup agency, I want to know at your agency right now, what you guys or you specifically are doing really well that you would say if you jumped into another agency right now, this is the first thing or the second thing you'd implement with them, whether it's sales related, marketing related, customer service, it can be anything.
Yeah, great question. I think there's a couple different factors that go into it. Like if I
Mhm.
started over from scratch, knowing everything I know, the first thing I would do is, which we already have down to pretty much a science, is you need a high volume of quality leads coming into your office, and your, like I said, those first couple months, the phone wasn't ringing, nothing was happening, I had nothing to sell. I really burned up a couple months of just wasted time that I just didn't know what I was. I should have had opportunities selling policies, making commission, reinvesting, because it's a snowball. Time with
Mhm.
reinvestment, it kind of compounds. So really, number one is like get some opportunities, get some leads, have a good lead quality lead source where you can convert that into good commissions, to reinvest into the agency. The second thing now, because I know what I know, is I would put a team in place. I would immediately build and have a very thorough hiring process, which we have, to bring in the right people in the right seats to be able to close those opportunities and then to service the opportunities. Because I think most people, and if most businesses, to scale to a higher level, you really want to make sure you're working on the business versus in the business. And I think
Mhm.
that's the ultimate goal. I could do that now because I have the capital and I have the the knowledge. Capital and knowledge, I think, are the two biggest things that you need in order to accomplish these things, like get the leads and the team. But those are the two main things. Other than that, I mean, all the other things are just structural, foundational things that you need to have just the right softwares and all the other things. But leads and team, those are the two
So
big things.
if we could dive into leads for a second,
Yeah.
how what is the most effective thing you're doing to get that lead pipeline going? Is it networking? Is it cold calling? What are you doing?
So yeah, the main source of leads that we're getting is from Tudo, which is our CRM system, software system.
Mhm.
Um, that's where we're doing a lot of outbound texting to prospects. So a lot of commercial insurance. That's the main source of our leads. Um, the other thing too is just the overall brand, the long-term brand of our agency, and just working with our own customers has just developed into organic leads that are just coming to us and people referring us. We've built very deep established relationships with lenders and real estate agents and other people in certain spaces that have influence on other customers as well. They just send us referrals.
Mhm.
But the main thing is like the outbound automation with texting, like doing drip campaigns for email blasts, text blasts, asking for referrals, some of the back end referral uh, campaigns. So a lot of just outbound campaigns.
Volume
Yeah.
on outbound, it sounds like, is your big thing. Just getting so many at bats that eventually the percentages start to add up in your favor.
Yeah. And then it's just a matter of managing those opportunities that people do show interest in and then having them in an organized pipeline where either you qualify them on priority of size and also just the intent, like how, were they just saying, yeah, I'll take a quote, but there's very low intent
Right.
versus like, hey, I need insurance next week. My effective day is this day. Here's my policy deck. Um, this is somebody that we put higher on a priority or intent list. And then also, like I said, size is also a big thing too. But yeah, we're just going large volume. I
Mhm.
think this is a big thing that I've seen other successful agencies do. Like I said, you need the phone to be ringing. You need opportunities. You need at bats. And then it's just a matter of refining that into better quality, prioritization, and organization of those leads and retargeting them. A lot of people, they don't necessarily need insurance right now, but they say call me in 6 months.
Right.
What do you do with that? Do you have something in place, some form of automation to retarget those people and have another email or text or something go out to them in 5 months so that they're ready to go in the sixth month?
Awesome.
So yeah, there's a lot of kind of things that go into it, but yeah.
I just listened to this guy speak at the First Choice conference, and he used to
Okay.
be a producer at an agency. Then he's actually one of the founders of Glovebox. I don't know if you know
Oh, nice.
Glovebox, they're like a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like tech platform, and now he works for First Choice. But he was going through his sales playbook on how he was getting in front of real estate agents and lenders and all of that, and it
Mm,
was super cool. Like showing up at the offices, and like you said, like he would show up, get 30 relationships, figure out who the best five were, And then those are the
Right.
people he would focus on, right? And then he would provide value to them by connecting them with realtors. And the realtors would want to get in front of the lenders, and the lenders want to get in front of the realtors. And it was just like one big on his end, he was hustling to connect all these people. But at the end
Mhm.
of the day, because he connected them all, they were all happy to feed him the business. And that's how he drummed up his pipeline in that. Um,
There's
but he said the same thing. Like the underlying message was, you need to figure out what you want to grow at, and then how many leads you need to get there based on like
correct.
your close rate, the premiums, all of it.
Yeah, exactly. Then it's just a math, and that's where I think something can be scalable is when you have something that you could pump more money into
Mm-hmm.
and get a certain, number of opportunities and then a close ratio. So these are things that take time. You can't just do that like on the day one. You can have a plan, but you probably need some data to start analyzing.
Yep.
That what he's doing is very interesting because it's much more like grunt, kind of like in person work. But those are also extremely valuable too because they're a lot of times they're better quality, better intent
Mm-hmm.
opportunities. So that's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, but the same underlying message is like you got to have at bats.
Right.
And then the second point you made about hiring the right people.
Yeah.
Do you think you have a good hiring process? How are you finding your people? Because I think in the insurance world right now, you see a lot of like the old heads not knowing where to find people. And then you see a
Right.
lot of people using VAs, but then there's also something to having a team that knows the business inside and out. And it looks like you have an internal team that's really good.
For sure. For sure. So yeah, I mean, there's two kind of two segments to our team. It's an outbound sales team and then an inbound sales team, and then basically, well, there's technically three, but the back end is like a service, just complete service back end. This is where we scale. We really just started with sales and service,
Mm-hmm.
but then it turned into sales, outbound sales, inbound sales, and then just back end pure customer service, just like handling stuff. But the process itself of hiring, that's something it took me it honestly took me 6 years to perfect. And now it's at the point where I do feel it's very spot on. It goes right back to what we just said, where it's like you need to have candidates. You can't really, you can't take a pool of 10, 15, 20 people. You need 100 people. You need 200 people, 300 people that you're, interviewing efficiently as well too, because you can't spend an hour interviews on every single person. So we have
Right.
a very laid out, thorough process where it starts with, and it's funny, we build some automation into it too. So
Mm-hmm.
people apply, sends them a link to schedule a 5 minute call with me. Then the 5 minute call, I take it, I talk to them. I can quickly pretty much tell if this is someone sharp or not sharp and some of their experience. Then I move them on to a second stage where I do an assessment where they actually have assessments,
Mm-hmm.
um, very thorough assessments for insurance people in service and sales. Then I take it to an official interview, and then it goes on from there. But yeah, so it's
Wow. So
yeah,
you have two touch points before you even interview them.
yeah, for sure. Because if the
Damn.
interview is an hour, I can't be interviewing, and that's the thing with volume. You need a volume of candidates, a lot of them, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where you can go to Indeed, you can go to LinkedIn, you can go to all these different places and get the candidates. And yeah, you're digging for gold. You're trying to find one person out of 100 that's like the top, the A player that's going to change your business. So that's
Right.
yeah,
Cool. No, that's good to hear. I mean, we do hiring too, and I'm with you. I think a lot of it's gut instinct. Like
yeah,
I'll interview candidates, and all of a sudden, just for some reason, the last guy I hired, it was just because of the conversation I had with him. He
right,
genuinely felt like one of the nicest people I've ever met. And I looked at his
right,
work, and I thought it was good enough, but I thought him as a person, you just don't get that type of like charisma. Basically, he was just so
yeah.
happy, smiling, asking me questions, all sorts of stuff that isn't natural to a lot of people.
Did you hire him?
Yeah, we did.
Okay,
I didn't even think that his work was as good as it should have been, but I
sure.
think that attitude a lot of the time, so you can make up. I know in 6 months if his work wasn't going to get any better, but it was good enough, and I knew that he was positive enough where I think he was going to work hard to get better.
Yeah, there's certain I think core values that you need to have that align. And yeah, like I think you made a great point, Connor. Like the gut instinct is something that I started to steer away from almost.
Mm,
I started to look purely at like their assessment, like oh their sales number or their sales drive is too low, like they're no good, even though I liked them or had those interactions. And I started to kind of fall into this rut where I was like, I just couldn't find anyone. I was like, something's always wrong with somebody.
Right.
And then leaning into that, I think too, like the people that have been here, like Jamel, she's our, um, one of our earliest employees. She's been with me for 5 years, pretty much since day one when I was in that little tiny 200, 300 square foot office. That was did no assessments, had no real interview questions. I was desperate for someone to just answer the phones because I was going to Europe for a week. And I was
Yep.
like, I need someone that could just pick up the phone while I'm gone. And I trusted her, and she's been amazing. So it's like, yeah, you got to
Awesome.
listen to your gut too. It's a tricky part. Not
Yeah.
everybody
You
has
can't
that.
listen to your gut till you know enough and you've seen enough. But then, if you don't listen to your gut or you listen to your gut too much, you might put yourself in a bad spot. There's a mix, right? Like, I
Double-edged
think you
sword.
also have to know as a business owner what you're good at and what you're bad at. And
Right.
if you start to recognize, you're like, all right, every time I trust myself, it tends to work out, or I know that I over trust myself here, and I
Right.
think I'm way too good at this shit, but I'm really not that good at it. You start to figure out as a business owner and decision maker
What do you
what is
think
your
you're
strength.
best at, Connor? Like, what's your best skills?
Phew, that's a good question. I think I move quickly
Yeah.
and I make decisions quickly, and I'm comfortable just living with if the shit goes wrong. But I think that goes back to trusting yourself. Like I've been like naturally good at the things that I like, and if I like the thing and I move quickly on it, usually it works out. And then you never quite know if the shit's going to work out anyways if you spend a ton of time thinking about it. So that would
Right.
probably be my biggest asset. And I think back to Gary Vee, he
Yeah.
always said speed kills, right? He's like, you just go out
True.
there and fucking do everything, try it, whatever. And I got that from him, and I embraced it because that's the way I like to move, anyways. And then I saw this successful guy who was like doing all this cool shit. Say it, I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm with Gary Vee on this one.
Yeah. We're definitely very similar in that sense because I do the same thing. I'm I would love to even see your score on one of these assessments because it tells you right off the bat if you're like
Ah,
overly analytical, and that'll cripple you, especially like when in decision making. You got to move fast. You got to, and if you find the right people, hire them quickly and then promote them quickly, pay them, keep them. Like,
mm-hmm.
yeah,
I'm with you.
momentum,
I'd
momentum.
love to take one of the assessments because I've never, just like you, I've
Yeah.
never had a corporate job, so I've never like interviewed or been assessed by someone's thing. Like that's always just been whatever,
It's cool to
just
see your
me.
own scores. You can see where you need improvement, and honestly,
Yeah,
it's pretty hardwired into you. You can't even really change it that much,
nice.
but it's interesting to see. Yeah, I'll give it to you if you want to see it.
Yeah, I would love to. I also think I could potentially learn from your hiring process because I think that I know for hiring,
Hmm.
I don't interview enough people. I
Yeah.
just try to find the first person, then I'm like, all right, they'll fit.
Right.
And given they're not, I think if I was hiring for like a really critical role, like a killer
Right.
salesperson or an advisor or something like that, I would take some more time. But a lot of the stuff that's very repeatable in our business, I just need to know that you have the skills. And then every once in a while, I find the happiest guy on planet Earth.
Yeah. Dude, that's
Yeah,
awesome. I hope he's doing well.
he is. He's crushing it. He's a month and a half in. He's
Nice.
great. Yeah, that's good. That's good to know. And I think again for agents, one of the biggest things and one of the big topics of conversation at the First Choice conference was how do all these things talk to each other, right?
Right.
And it seems like there's not a good answer. I think the AMS agency management system people failed at building a really really good product, so now nothing really works with anything. But then there's a lot of software to fill the gaps. But things like this, whether Tudo, Go High Level, it seems to connect a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily mission critical to your business, but
Right.
it for you it's like without that it doesn't go, right? Like
At this point.
yeah.
Yeah. At
So
this point, for sure. And that's the
I'm
thing. I wouldn't like put so much blame on them, like Easy Links or QQ Catalyst and all these AMS management systems. I think that they did the best that they could for the time
true.
when they started. But now we're looking like all agents are sitting there like everyone is thinking the exact same thing.
Hmm.
So if anyone's out there listening from like one of these management systems, everyone's frustrated. I think the whole insurance industry is way behind on technology. I think that needs to get improved immediately. People like you, Connor, can definitely help fill in the gaps and like expedite a lot of the things and so much more that you guys offer. But I think that overall fills in the gaps. It's just unfortunate that you would think that these companies that are making who God knows how much money
I
can't
know.
improve they're making so much money, it's insane, but they can't improve their systems to ultimately help independent agents make more money and bring more to the industry anyway. So that's the thing that I believe. And I've asked a couple people. I don't know if you've ever heard of Better Agency.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. I know them.
Nick Ayers, cool guy, super cool guy. I've asked him. We jumped on a podcast, and I asked him. I was like, "Why do you think they don't just improve? Like, why?" He's like, "Because they don't have to. He's like,
Yeah,
they literally just don't have to. They have a monopoly, and especially like people like me. I have Easy Links. I probably won't switch because it's
right.
just so hard to get all the data out and all the stuff that the notes and the customer history and all the different things we've already done in there. It's like they got us like we're hostages.
I know. I obviously don't have an AMS myself, but I think the same thing about why I wouldn't switch from Spotify to Apple Music. So I'm like, I got my playlist. I know how to use it. I know where to click. It does the same thing. It just maybe one has a little bit more than the other or a different thing. I do think where the opportunity might be is
Mm,
obviously there's the guys who are fat and happy like Verta4 with AMS 360 and Easy Links and whatnot. And then there's the tier under that that still has a bunch of money and they could develop this stuff, but they're a little more hungry to take the market share from the big guys. Like Now
mhm,
Certs and Hawksoft, I think are
mm.
like from what I hear, those are the two that are building for the customer rather than just relying on what they have because they got the lion's share 10 years ago.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
don't know enough about them. I would, yeah. That's I hope so.
me
I hope
too.
so. I don't think that it's it's a bit of a challenge. I think. I don't
Yeah.
know how feasible it really is.
I don't know
But
either. That's why
we hope.
I'm not a tech builder, right? So I don't know exactly, but that's just always a question. I mean, like, how does the most important piece of every agency? How is there not just one kick-ass product? But
What do you think like your services can help do for like an agency like mine or like another small agency? Because I'm sure a bunch of smaller kind of just starting up agencies are going to watch this and they're going to wonder like, oh, what do you have to offer that could possibly help them? With what we're talking about too, with just like leads and just overall structure and keeping things efficient on the long run.
yeah, no, I appreciate you asking. I think we call it the digital foundation. So just like anything, like if you're going to start selling insurance, you need to put your clients into an AMS. But in terms of the internet, you need some sort of foundation that is your website set up the right way, your Google My Business page set up the right way. And that's
Right.
kind of like 101. And then you can get into, all right, if I'm trying to sell more condos or contractors, how do I
Mm,
start popping up and getting them to come to me instead of me having to reach out to come to get them? And I
right.
think you need both. Like you need sales and you need marketing,
Of course.
but marketing is one of those things that just like any system you build over the course of time, it starts small, it's not a huge impact on your business, and then year over year, it just kind of snowballs.
For
So
sure.
the value that we would really bring if I were to summarize it is like if you're just starting out, we lay the foundation. But if you're already established, we run into so many incumbent and just antiquated agencies that have all this money. They have like really powerful websites, but they've never bothered to actually do anything with them. So we
Mm,
can turn those on and make that work for them as well.
yeah. Like, what do you think about Adelphia? Like, I think we did the score rating. We're a little low on the score rating for the website. What would
Yeah,
you say, just kind of like bird's eye view? What would you tell me, like, hey, like, this is how you take things to the next level digitally?
yeah, for
I don't have to
sure.
be cold calling everybody anymore,
No, I still think that there's nothing that replaces good sales, but I
Yeah.
do think every entrepreneur has the tool that they use and they rely on because that's what got them there. So like
Right.
for me, I'm the same way. Like I don't think we'll ever stop selling, but I think
Mm,
if you're really fucking good at marketing, you don't need to sell because people come to you. So there's always something that you can lean on.
for
Um,
sure.
but with you specifically, you're one of those sites I look at and I go, you're big enough now where if you just did a couple things right, you
Mm,
could you can start to actually like generate some inbound leads, and that comes from basically building these landing pages on your website to target the types of business you want. So call it contractors, like masons, painters, plumbers, landscapers, and you optimize them so Google knows, hey, when someone in California searches this, let's put Adelphi in the running, right?
yeah.
There's a bunch of other factors, but like there's so many things you can control that are pretty easy. Just like you think like it's obvious. Like if someone comes in through our website or we get a lead, have them drip this sequence, right? Have them go through the
Sure.
sequence. I look at the website the same way where I'm like, if you have the website and you sell this insurance, have the page on your
Mm,
site that's done the right way. So at
of
least
course.
you're kind of in the running, right? So there's things like that. And then one of the few things that costs zero money, it's just effort, are Google reviews. You know,
Mm,
like I always say, like, you can just take your friend's phone at a party and just leave a review for yourself, right? And just be like, hey, I know Chris. Chris is the man, blah, 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 blah. Leave the 5-star Google review. All of your employees can do that. You don't necessarily need to have customers leaving you Google reviews. You just need real people
the
leaving you Google
numbers,
reviews about you, about your business, anything, right?
right?
And that impacts, you know, like, this is what I tell small agents to kind of, you know, boost up their confidence, or I tell big
Yeah,
agents to scare them. The internet does not give a shit how big your agency is. Like, Google
right.
doesn't care. They just care about if you're doing things the right way, and they'll put a 2-person agency over a 200-person agency because the 200 or the 2-person agency did everything correctly, right? So there's no more, like, obviously you can get outspent by people on Google Ads and whatnot, but if you do these check boxes right in Google's algorithm, it doesn't matter how big you are.
That's always been my thing. It's just like I feel like there's such big players that I would have to spend some ungodly amount of money to like even just be relevant.
Mm.
But it sounds like there are a lot of things you can do that just the algorithm might just reward you for. Is that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, blog posts, answering questions.
Yeah.
Usually, the most viewed pages on all of our clients' websites are the homepage, the about page, and then if they answer good questions on a blog post. And it's not even
Mm,
close. Then there's the pages that generate a bunch of leads. But again, it's one of those things isn't going to do everything for you. You need to have the blog post. You need to have like a good sales process, a good follow up process, good inbound lead process. But
totally.
I think as you start to figure one out and you're like, okay, we got this on lock, let's go on to the next one. I don't think you should ever really be content with where you're at, because like you said, you want to be working on the business all the time.
For
And
sure.
just within marketing there's a bunch of things you can work on, you know, just within
Yeah.
sales, there's a bunch of things. Just figuring out, if you've completely neglected marketing, maybe it's an easy way to just like get a little win, right? Because that first step you take a lot of the time is one of the bigger steps, because you go from doing nothing to
Mm,
actually generating something. Like when you go to lose weight, you see all these
mm,
things like he lost like 20 pounds in the first week, and then that kind of gets incrementally smaller. And I think in
right.
marketing you start to see a big jump in the beginning because you never really did it before. um,
Mm.
yeah.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
Hmm.
Never thought of that. I'd be curious to see because, yeah, like I said, we did the Google ads. Um, for us, it didn't. I was managing it all myself. I didn't have an
Hmm.
expert like you involved. That's why I'm excited to be working with you too to try to get something going and hopefully open up a different stream. That's another thing I would say to agents too. It's like open up streams of leads. Don't just rely on one source. Yeah, there's like you were saying, there's one source that's working well. You should really hone in and double down on, but that doesn't mean you should stop the other. Like take every avenue you can or every lead source, open up all the pipelines. And that's where I'm at too. I'm like, I would love to get some like organic people just ringing, calling in for leads from
Right.
Google and any other places. If you can think
Yeah.
of other ones, like let me know.
No, absolutely. No, we'll get something going for you. I think there's a lot of spots where we can help you out, and it's obvious for us. And again, it's a long term game. Like, again, my mom was starting an agency. I'd be like, hey, mom, this is what you got to do with the internet right now, right?
Right.
And then you just keep doing it, and in 2 years, you're really fucking happy you started it, you know,
Yeah,
24 months ago.
for sure. For
Yeah,
sure. Well, yeah, no, definitely, Connor. If more people, ask about those things, I'll make sure to definitely send them your way as well. Because,
appreciate it, man.
yeah, man, I think you got a good grip, and it's crazy to me to see that there was not more people doing what you're doing. At least at this conference that we went to, you were practically the only person under the age of like, 40
I know.
that had any grasp or any idea of like what is important, and especially in such a big industry.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think you're in a great spot, and I think there's a lot of agents that could probably benefit from what you're talking about. So
Yeah,
I'll
appreciate
definitely,
that, man.
yeah, of course.
Cool. All right, let's wrap this up. You can find Chris the Insurance Guy on YouTube, Chris the Insurance Guy on Instagram, your agency, Adelphi Insurance or AdelphiaInsurance.com. Sorry, read it wrong. And then what else do you got to plug?
Yeah, just the office. Give us a ring if anybody does have referrals in California. I'm sure there's probably people that see this across the country. We mainly focus on California. We do Texas as well. So if anybody does want a help with something in California, hit us up. And if any good agents out there are looking for a job, we're always hiring. So always looking to grow the team and bring good people in. So yeah, happy to help. And yeah, we'll onward and upward.
Onward and upward, baby. All right. That's it.